once you start to really put yourself in your next client's shoes and look at the world through from the vantage point that they're looking at it. So they can be in a bad spot. They can be in a bad headspace. They can have a lot of anxiety. And so some of the things we even talked about where just reducing the friction is actually not just like making things easier. It's about reducing anxiety. It's about reducing the fear of the unknown.
What does effective marketing mean to you? Is it simply a measure of how much you spend on Google AdWords each month? Or is it how easy you make it for a potential new client to see you helping people with problems just like them? This week, we're talking with Gyi Tsakalakis about effective marketing. Gyi is the president of AttorneySync, a digital marketing agency for law firms. You may also know him from his podcasts, Clienting and Lunch Hour Legal Marketing. Gyi and I are talking about the intersection of service and marketing and how ultimately being authentic may be the most effective marketing tactic you can use. We'll also discuss how marketing can reduce friction and anxiety for your potential clients, which ultimately is client service. But I won't explain it all here. Let's get to the interview. I'm John Strohmeyer, and this is the 5-Star Counsel Podcast. The market for legal services is shifting, and lawyers who don't adapt will be left behind. This podcast gives you a competitive edge in today's market by sharing in the client service lessons you probably didn't learn in law school or in law practice. Let's start the show. Hey 5-Star listeners, before we start, I want to tell you about our amazing sponsor, Smith AI. Smith AI is a virtual receptionist service for small businesses with a specialty in working with solo and small law firms. I signed up with them within weeks of starting my firm because they are affordable for even the smallest solo practice. Their friendly receptionists respond to potential clients in Spanish or English, screen and schedule new leads, and can even take payments. And now they're answering calls 24 hours a day. So even when you're asleep, they're still working. Even beyond the phone, they've got live agents and chatbots ready to capture leads on your website, by text, and by Facebook Messenger. Smith's friendly gatekeepers can staff your front line so you can work uninterrupted. You can finally have the peace of mind that while you're working, you're not missing out on future work. Plans start at just $70 a month for calls and $100 a month for chats. Smith AI is offering a free trial, and our podcast listeners get an extra $100 discount code with promo code 5-STAR. That's FIVESTAR. Sign up and learn more at www.smith.ai. Don't let another day go by. Try Smith AI. Gyi Tsakalakis, it is so great to have you here.
John, I am so pleased to be here. We're going to have a blast.
Of course we are. This is, I think, at least our third time on a podcast together. And importantly for me, I think I was one of the first guests on your outstanding podcast, Clienting.
And it's only outstanding because we have fantastic guests like you on Clienting. And yeah, very honored to be here as a guest of yours. And let's cast some pods.
Awesome. Let's get right to it. So here you are. I have mostly shied away from having true marketing people on because it took me a while to figure out, well, where's the service aspect of marketing? Because the way I usually think about it is service is how we deliver, how any business is going to deliver its technical products, so lawyers, technical legal thinking, or physical product, the Lego Ultimate Collector's Edition Millennium Falcon set that if I say it enough, eventually Lego will send me one for free. Maybe not. So when I started backing up and I'm like, all right, well, every firm does that product of what we're selling, the 1 gallon of legal, but we're also going to think about marketing because that's our one-way communication with future clients. And then somewhere down the line, we'll have a way different conversation, probably not with you today, but sales, where we're taking that interest that we've created as part of the marketing process and we're turning that into an engagement. So here today, we're going to be talking about how do we make marketing easy for potential clients? And we're not going to be, I don't want to think about like, oh, well, you're going to put this UTM code in all of your links so you know where they came from, but it's kind of a more broad level. What should firms be doing to make it easy for new clients to find them?
Love it. So balancing tactical and conceptual, and at the risk of repeating what you just said, the key here is that by reducing friction, for the information that people are looking for about you, how to contact you, how to work with you. That is marketing. It's getting people to have a great experience, to go back and then go out and sing your praises about the great service experience that they had. So a couple ways you can do this. One that we talk about a lot is, and we were actually talking about this even right before the show, some of the most common complaints that legal services consumers, aka potential clients, have about their interactions with lawyers. And so it's things like response, it's follow-up, it's explaining the process, it's keeping them informed throughout the process. And so the thing is, people don't, and I think even as you acknowledged at the start, people think that there's a separation between the service delivery and marketing, and they're really closely connected. So one of the things that I like to recommend, here's an obvious one, just to get people thinking about it, is scheduling appointments, right? Like people are like, well, scheduling appointments, what's that have to do with marketing? It's like, well, I can tell you, I've actually seen social media posts and even reviews that say things like they made the process for scheduling meetings really simple. And I really appreciate that. So, whether you're implementing Calendly or Acuity or whatever, some other scheduling tool, and we won't get into the too tactical because I want to keep it high level, but tacticeptual or contactic. That's the point though, right? So like they're connected, and your ability to convert, as the marketing people would say with their jargon, a potential client into a client is closely related to the experience that potential client has. How easy is it to find answers? Did they go search on your name and they don't see anything about you? It's hard to find contact information. It's hard to find testimonials. It's hard to find this stuff. That's a bad experience. Alternatively, they search you. You've got an FAQ, on your whatever listings show up. It makes very clear how they can contact you, what it's like to work with you. Hope maybe you have some video content talking about what your representation looks like, or who you help, how you help them, and how you're uniquely qualified to help them. Like that's the stuff that's, it's great experience. It's great marketing.
Yeah, there are so many things to pick up on. I'm going to start with kind of the obvious one of unique qualifications, because people are coming to a lawyer because we need to move the needle on something. Sue this guy, defend me from a lawsuit, get me out of jail, get me divorced, whatever it is. People don't want anything else. It's fine and dandy for us to have a nice experience, but the experience isn't what people are coming for. Go to Disney for a great experience, but for a lawyer, you're going to move the needle. And kind of an easy way to think about it is, if you had a free Saturday, would you rather, is there any lawyer you would say, I'm going to go spend my free Saturday at the lawyer's office because the experience was so great? And making things easy for scheduling is one thing, but they had a great omelet menu because, that's the next progression on everybody's got to have a drink menu now.
Totally. No, and I mean, it's totally fair. And then let's dive deeper on this idea of what experience means, right? So in most of the contexts that a client comes to a lawyer, they're in a bad situation. They're injured, they've been arrested, they're contemplating divorce. These aren't the types of things where a mint on the pillow type of thinking about experience is going to be helpful. But here's where experience comes in. Do they feel like you actually care? Do they feel like you're treating them with respect and dignity? And your marketing materials need to include that sentiment. And so again, I think some of it is maybe it's a misconception of what some people think about when they think of experience, right? Experience is everything you touch. And so it's building empathy and gratitude into those experiences, into your content, into your website marketing, into your email marketing. That's what we're talking about here. And it's, again, when you think about it, when you expand the definition of experience to include those things, then it becomes very obvious how marketing and experience are connected.
And I really like that, because the things you just mentioned, it's not the mint on the pillow. Those are nice. And at the Four Seasons, we would have turn down service, but it wasn't leaving, again, steak dinner. If there was something, it was turning down the sheets, filling up the ice, and little touches. It was never, here's a free meal.
Mm-hmm.
And so what I see happening is we take this back, and people get distracted with the shiny objects of just throw everything you can at experience, when the things that you just talked about as being crucial to experience, care, respect, dignity, empathy, gratitude, those are essentially free things. They're not shiny. It's born out of, here, we've worked with enough clients. We know what they're going through. And so you can start to help them identify themselves and say, you're scared about losing your kids. You're scared about going away. We can speak to you in a way that we know from having dealt with hundreds, if not thousands of clients like you. They can see themselves and see that you know who they are.
Right, exactly. And the other thing I think is it's part of this conversation is that once you start to really put yourself in your next client's shoes and look at the world through from the vantage point that they're looking at it. So they can be in a bad spot. They can be in a bad headspace. They can have a lot of anxiety. And so some of the things we even talked about where just reducing the friction is actually not just like making things easier. It's about reducing anxiety. It's about reducing the fear of the unknown. It's about adding some clarity and certainty to an uncertain future. And here we are talking in the middle of a global pandemic. Anxieties are higher than they've ever been for a lot of people, especially people that are dealing with these really sensitive issues right now. And so, another one that people don't always connect the dots on, if you ask wherever you are, and I know that regionally people are taking different precaution levels about the pandemic, but if you're asking people who are already in an anxious space to come to your office because you only do meetings face to face, or they have to come in to sign documents, or whatever other things, the more expectation, the more difficult you make it for them, you're raising their anxiety level. And so you're back to this connection between one of the strongest things you can do is to tell people, we are very grateful that we are able to continue to help our clients through this crazy time by having virtual intake or by e-signature, technology, or, hey, we can make, you don't have to write us a check or go drop a check off in the mail. You can pay us through our online portal. Those are the little touches that can actually also reduce anxiety, give more clarity, and, help people that are dealing with situations in a time that is really, really tough.
Now, just everything you just said, saving all of that, taking it back to our tacticeptual mouthful nonsense, argle-bargle, you had mentioned something else of explaining the process. And I think that is so important because we've been doing whatever our practice area is forever. We know what the steps are, and we're here to guide our clients through this process. They know roughly what it looks like at the end, but we need to, one, make sure they know where they are on the trail. How far along are we? Are we there yet? But also, the more we can say, here are our next signposts. Here's the next marker that we should be looking out for. We're not doing anything for the next 2 months because we have to wait for the court to do whatever they're going to do. And so the explain it once and tell clients where they are so they can even see, we're waiting, dear client, you're waiting on us right now. Dear client, we're waiting on you right now. Dear client, we're waiting on somebody else. It shows you've done this before. Just being able to say, all right, well, we're going to have to do this, 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 and this. And the ways, it's not going to be a straight line sometimes. You did litigation in ways that just pretend to sometimes it helped clients. But, just being able to say, we could get thrown off by something at this stage. And again, reducing the anxiety of, if you know it's coming, it's a lot easier to deal with.
Totally. And that's the thing. I think lawyers get caught up in the ethics paradox where they're like, well, I don't want to give specific advice through a video or through an automated email, or on an FAQ in a knowledge base on my website that explains the process. And it's like, that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about what you just said, John, which is you're a guide on a path. You're a hand on their shoulder, or I don't know, do you go on a head and on a shoulder when you're walking on a trail? That may be weird.
Sure,
why not? Or you're holding hands, or you're mapping out the next direction, or pointing to where you're going. That's what we're talking about. And again, where's the connection to marketing? When you're doing that, guess what? Your clients are going to tell people about it. They're going to tell people like, oh my gosh, you've got to talk to so-and-so. They've got this entire process in place where they lay out the roadmap. They keep you informed about what's going on the whole time. That's your marketing. That's actually remarkable because, one gallon of legal versus another gallon of legal, it's hard to distinguish those two things. You can't, most legal services consumers, they don't know what a good outcome looks like in some of these contexts. They don't know how much money they should be getting for their personal injury case. They don't know if it's realistic for them to get acquitted. They don't know if they're going to be splitting their assets 50-50 after a divorce. But what they do know is, does my lawyer seem to care about me? Is my lawyer helping me through this journey? And those are the things that set you apart, that make you unique, that make you more remarkable, that people will talk about, and that your next clients will come to you and say, "Hey, I heard you've got this amazing roadmap, and so and so, your former client so and so told me all about this. Can't wait to work with you."
Right. And getting back to the no specific advice, well, so many of the questions we get are never specific. I mean, it's specific to the Smith family because they're the ones asking right now. But 98% of that answer is, well, we're going to have to do this. And, Texas law says this is going to be the answer. You've told them that. How many times are you going to have to answer that same question over the course of the next year or the next 5 years? Doing the 10 minutes of marketing to sit down with your iPhone, record the answer, and put it on YouTube.
Right.
And it helps people say, oh, he knows what he's talking about. Maybe he can help me too.
Exactly. And one of the things, getting back to the helping and the types of questions, and you brought this up before, but sometimes all they're looking for is, when's the next time I should expect to hear from you? When's the next major phase? Generally speaking, we're going to be in the discovery phase. Here's what that means. Here's how long that typically takes. Obviously, it can vary based on a bunch of stuff, but I'm going to keep, you can expect to receive a communication from me once a week or once a month, or, over the next 2 months, here's what you should be expecting. Setting those expectations. And again, generally, not, you can hear, I guarantee that I'm going to call you and get an outcome for you on this day. No one's talking about that. It's putting their mind at ease. And then again, as you mentioned, you put that on YouTube, you make that publicly available. You talk about how your practice, how you can differentiate from other lawyers. And that's the thing. The great new, we talk to new lawyers all the time, and they'll say, there are lawyers that are much more experienced than me that I'm competing with. How can I possibly compete with them? Well, guess what? A lot of those lawyers don't have these systems in place. And so again, everybody wants to know that they're with a competent lawyer. Like, don't get me wrong. I'm not trying to dismiss that at all. But these can be competitive advantages for you from a marketing perspective if you're building in these better experiences, because, some of those lawyers, yeah, they're great. They're also busy. And, we see this in the PI context all the time. They're like, yeah, you know what? Your case just is not high on my priority list right now. And so through their lack of follow-up, lack of response, lack of showing empathy and gratitude, they lose the client. The client goes and shops around.
Right. And I'll get on a small soapbox only to say,
get up there.
The new lawyers, what I hate seeing is them trying to hide that they're a new lawyer.
Right.
Like, it's totally fine. If you're out there by yourself and you're 1 or 2 years out, people need to know that. I mean, just as a basic transparency thing, you should be telling people, look, I've graduated law school in 2018. I've been licensed for a year and a half. That's fine. There are people, the big cases aren't going to come your way because you haven't earned that yet. Like that, when you get the big cases, that the ones that the other PI firms are ignoring, it's because they've already done those. Like, they've done the basic work to get their skills up. That's okay. Like, you want those people, and they're not, those people who are too small for the big guys are probably going to be just fine for you while you figure out what you're doing, what your voice is, and you drive your clients up. You drive up your baseline client over time. It's not like you start swinging and hitting home runs from the day, from the first time you get out there. You've just got to take those and take care of them.
Right. I mean, the number one word here is authenticity, because you think about it. So let's just do the counterfactual, if that's right use there. You hide all that stuff, and then put aside all the legal ethics issues and things that come out of that. But let's just focus on it from the client's perspective. If they felt misled that you were some kind of 30-year top of your field, tried hundreds of cases, and then they find out that you're not that, they're going to feel very misled and betrayed, and they're not going to want to be your client anyway. So you might as well be you, be your authentic self. And, this isn't so much in terms of like the experience marketing realm, but if someone comes to you and they're just you're not the right fit for them, guess what? Go refer them to an attorney is, and guess what else you just did? You started to nurture a relationship with another attorney who might be able to refer business to you.
Right. And the great part of that is the more you kind of let your authentic self be out there, the easier it is, as you just said, the people who don't like you will go somewhere else, and the people who do like you will be attracted to you. And one of the things that I've been doing on my own website recently is just adding more humor to it. It's not being the same boring, dry website that everybody else follows along with. There is a reference to the Three Amigos in my estate planning copy. And it's just kind of a small thing there. If anybody, if you read far enough in, you'll get it. And certain people will get it. And nobody's mentioned it to me yet, but it's still there for me. And I feel great about it. The other thing I do, I've listed all my dogs as employees. And at least once a month, I'll get a new client telling me they were trying to decide between me and somebody else. And they saw my dogs and they were like, that's it, we're going with John. Not because of, over 10 years of experience, not because I'm board certified, not because of any of the fun things that I, hang on a plaque on a wall, but because I put my dogs and had their descriptions written in dog voices, not just bark, 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 but who they are, just letting that out. The people who like that, they're going to come to me. The people who are going to be put off by me having fun while at work, hopefully, God bless them, go somewhere else. Like, if you want me to not be that guy, it's going to be very hard for me to not be that guy. And to the point that I don't want to have to thread that needle.
Exactly. And again, if we expand our definition enough on this line of experience, and you're building relationships and showing empathy and gratitude in, whether you're in a Facebook affinity group for people who like dogs or, Chicago pizza, those relationships and those bonds that you start to create, that's part of the experience conversation, because guess what? You're not selling to anybody. You're in there building a relationship. At some point through that relationship, it stands to reason they're going to go see, like, hey, what do you do? Or go look at your profile. And it's like, oh, John's a lawyer. Hey, you know what? Next time I need that kind of lawyer, guess who I'm going to? My good friend from the dog group, John.
Exactly. You go hang out where you're supposed to be. And, you're not hard pitching for, hey, don't forget I do this. Just offer the free answers that make sense when they make sense. And otherwise, talk about the dog group.
Be social and be helpful. If you expand your definition of experience to include those two concepts, it becomes very obvious how those things are connected. Experience and the service that you deliver and your marketing, they all feed each other.
Gyi, we've had nothing but hot takes and cool answers for the last 22 minutes. I think this is probably a good place to close things down for right now. Where can the good listeners find you on the onlines?
Well, I waste a lot of time on Twitter. So at Gyi Tsakalakis, just like it sounds. Usually if you just start typing GYI, I'll come up. Or you can email me at Gyi, GYI, at AttorneySync, attorneysync.com. Or you can email John and ask for my contact information.
Do that as well.
Sorry, John.
Gyi, thanks so much for being with us today.
Thanks so much for having me. I had a lot of fun.
Thanks so much for listening. You can find more info on us and get your free white paper on client service at 5starcounsel.com. You can get in touch with me at john@5starcounsel.com. If you enjoyed the podcast, please subscribe wherever fine podcasts are found and leave us a review wherever you can.